Since birth, I've had a cyan birthmark on my wrist that can predict fortune. It turns red when good things are about to happen, and black when bad things are approaching. In my past life, at a palace autumn banquet, I saw the birthmark suddenly turn black, and sure enough, an assassin rose up, pointing directly at the third prince. In my urgency, I shielded him with my body, desperately saving the third prince, and was betrothed by the emperor to be a royal concubine. But on the day I gave birth, he used his sword to cut open my stomach, brutally extracted the child, and burned it to ashes. Yuna is a valiant daughter of a military family, highly skilled in martial arts. Even if you hadn't intervened, she could have captured all the assassins alive. It was your ambition that drove her to a dead end, forcing her to jump into the sea of fire with my flesh and blood in her womb. I cried out in despair, but my hands and feet were chopped off, my body was covered in honey, and I was thrown into an ant and insect nest. Don't you love sweet soup? Consider this a reward for saving you. Eat your fill. I endured 7 days of being eaten alive by ants until I died. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the day the third prince was assassinated. Seeing the assassin leap out, I quickly knelt down and shouted, "This humble woman is incapable. I beg your majesty to withdraw the imperial decree and reward, and instead bestow the title of imperial concubine on Miss Yuna, who deserves the credit for saving you." Seeing everyone's gazes, I was shocked and quickly knelt down with a thump. The humble servant intended to risk her life to come to your rescue, but unfortunately, she was too far from His Highness, the third prince, and arrived too late. This humble woman deserves 10,000 deaths. Please punish me, Your Majesty. The emperor's face was dark, and he trembled with rage. Just about to vent his anger by beheading me, the cowardly, would-be imperial concubine, the third prince, Qin Ziyi, struggled to his feet, clutching his bleeding wound and gasping for breath as he spoke. "Father, there's no need to be angry with me and the Prime Minister's eldest daughter. Damaging your imperial health and the harmony between ruler and subject. Killing someone over such a trivial matter would likely tarnish your reputation for benevolence among the people." He glanced at me with a complicated expression, took the hand of the person next to him, and, with their support, walked to the front of the hall. Fortunately, Yuna grabbed me just in time, so the sword didn't hit my vital point directly. "It looks worse than it is, just need a few days to recover." The imperial physicians quickly stepped forward, carrying their medical cases, and began to carefully examine Qin Ziyi's injuries. The emperor turned his head, only then noticing Yuna. Her face flushed with embarrassment, being held tightly by Qin Ziyi, worthy of being a daughter of a great general, fearless in the face of danger. "You saved the third prince's life today, which can be considered a significant contribution. I see that you and Ziyi are deeply in love. How about I bestow a marriage upon you too, granting you the position of primary wife to the third prince?" Everyone praised the idea, and Qin Ziyi and Yuna were overjoyed, agreeing on the spot. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, ready to step back. Who knew? Qin Ziyi's expression would slightly change, and he grabbed my wrist. "Father, although Shenyenro failed to save me, she has a sincere heart. Your son does not want to let her down, and begs father to grant her to me as a concubine." My face couldn't help but turn pale. What concubine? That sounds nice, but she's just a maidservant to serve him. Isn't he deeply in love with Yuna? Why does he have to involve me again? I clenched my teeth in hatred, yet had no choice but to kneel again and bow to the emperor in gratitude. "Your servant feels unworthy of third prince's praise. Moreover, at such a critical moment, I failed to protect Prince, and thus do not deserve the position of a concubine." Father quickly stepped forward. "Following my words, my daughter has a reckless and unruly nature. The prince has already been generous not to punish her. Please do not mock her with a marriage proposal." It was then that the emperor realized, I am, after all, the daughter of a high-ranking official. So, for the sake of my father's reputation, he appeared to ponder for a moment, then looked towards the third prince. The Prime Minister is the head of all officials. Wouldn't it be insulting to make his daughter a side consort to the third? Ziyi, do not mention this matter again in the future. Qin Ziyi still wanted to say something, but under the Emperor's stern gaze, she could only compromise and shut her mouth. Because of the sudden assassination attempt during the banquet, everyone was frightened, and the banquet naturally ended on a sour note. Just as I was about to leave the palace gates and get into the carriage home, I was stopped by Qin Ziyi. Yuna, just wait for me here. I have a few words to reprimand Shen Yenro. Sai Yuna reluctantly let go of his hand, her eyes directed at me with a hint of unwillingness. Qin Ziyi clutched his wound as he walked up to me, his face full of anger. As soon as he spoke, I felt like I had fallen into an ice cave. Shen Yenro, you've also been reborn, haven't you? I was indeed excessive in my past life, but Yuna lost her life because of you. You should understand the pain of losing my wife. This lifetime, I've already stepped back again and again, begging the Emperor to grant you the position of a secondary consort. If you don't agree immediately, are you still coveting Yuna's position as third princess? I advise you to stop dreaming. I took a step back, speaking amidst the whispers of onlookers. Third prince, I don't know what you're talking about, rebirth or otherwise, but I have absolutely no interest in the position of third princess. In my eyes, you and Miss Sai are made for each other, perfectly matched. With that, I turned to leave, only to have Qin Ziyi grab my wrist, a dark expression on his face. You think you can fool me with these words, Shen Yenro? Don't think you can play tricks behind my back. Yuna is not someone you can touch. I felt inexplicably irritated by Qin Ziyi's entanglement and tried forcefully to break free from his arm. Just then, we suddenly heard the eunuchs shouting, "Someone! Quick! Miss Sai has fainted." Qin Ziyi's expression changed drastically, and he released his hand in a panic, ignoring the pain from the wounds on his body, his face pale. He hurried towards Sai Yuna. I sneered and walked out of the palace gate. As soon as I got home, my father walked into the room with an anxious expression and quickly asked me, "Yang Ru, when did you become a backup candidate for the third prince's consort? Such a big matter. How could you not tell your father?" Don't blame Dad for being nosy. That palace is not a good place to be. We don't seek wealth and glory, we just want a peaceful life. In my previous life, I was eaten to the bone by ants and insects, suffering unbearably, crying my heart out. It was my nearly 70-year-old father who knelt day and night in front of the palace, kowtowing incessantly, begging the third prince to spare my life. Thinking of this, my nose tightened, a sharp pain rippled through my chest, and tears almost welled up uncontrollably. In this life, I never want to have anything to do with Qin Ziyi again. I just want to protect those who love me. I clenched my teeth and shook my head, holding back tears. Father, I have never met the third prince, and I absolutely do not want to be a consort. Hearing this, my father visibly relaxed, but immediately after, a look of worry appeared on her face. It seems the third prince has taken a fancy to you and asked the emperor to bestow you upon him. But since you're unwilling, we should start preparing for your marriage as soon as possible. The next day, the Prime Minister's residence released a statement. I've reached the age to marry and wish to choose a suitable husband. My mother indulged me and took me to various banquets, large and small, held by the capital's elite. At a spring banquet, Sai Yuna, holding a round-eyed kitten, suddenly appeared and blocked my path. Shen Yenro, you claim to be a noble lady, but I see no difference between you and those seductive vixens from the brothels, always resorting to base and alluring tactics. My face showed displeasure, and I stopped walking. It is said that daughters of military families are straightforward and unconstrained by trifles. But that doesn't mean you can casually insult someone's integrity. Who have I seduced? What underhanded trick did you use to seduce His Highness the Third Prince? Why would he take the initiative to ask the Emperor to grant the marriage? Why does he become so distracted at the mere mention of your name? I frowned, almost laughing out loud. You should ask your third prince about that. I don't want to be on his radar. Yuna's eyes widened, her expression seemingly incredulous. You hussy. Did you seduce His Highness with just that pretty face? Pearl, scratch her face. Upon hearing the command, the cat in her arms suddenly pounced towards me. But I had already noticed the dark birthmark on the cat's wrist, and my heart tightened with suspicion. I quickly grabbed the cat by the neck and forced it away. Unexpectedly, the cat let out a miserable scream in midair, then plunged into the nearby lake with a loud splash. Pearl, Yuna screamed in terror. Taking a hurried step toward the lake's edge, she watched the cat struggling in the lake, roaring and, forcing the servants, hurry up and jump in to save it. If anything happens to my Pearl, don't even think about keeping your heads overnight, you bunch of dog slaves. Before I could react, Qin Zedi's roar suddenly rang out from behind. Shenyenro, I thought you had learned your lesson. I didn't expect you to be incorrigible, even jealous of a cat when you get jealous. Yuna saw the third prince arrive and immediately threw herself into his arms, crying her heart out. Your Highness, my Pearl was thrown into the lake by Sister Shen. Without it, I don't want to live anymore. After saying that, she actually cried until she fainted. Qin Zedi's gaze landed on me. The rage in his eyes seemed to want to tear me apart. Pearl is Yuna's most precious cat. Do you know the consequences of making Yuna sad? Someone, hold her down and push her into the water too. Seeing the third prince's guards surrounding me, my face turned grim, and I felt a little flustered. Third prince, you want to lay a hand on me? My father is the prime minister. Have you considered the consequences of arbitrarily using corporal punishment on me? He sneered. You attempted to harm the imperial concubine, which is already an offense to the dignity of the imperial family. This small punishment is already merciful enough. The imperial guards seized me and forced me to the edge of the lake. The commotion drew the attention of everyone at the banquet. My mother hurriedly knelt and kowtowed, begging the third prince for mercy. Others also joined in, urging him to withdraw his order. But Qin Zi showed no mercy. He drew his sword and said coldly, anyone who tries to dissuade me will be punished along with her. I want to see who dares to interfere in my personal affairs today. Hold her under the water and drown her 100 times. Don't stop without my permission. Having said that, he left without looking back, carrying the unconscious Yuna as he rushed to find the imperial physician. The sound of people trying to dissuade them gradually faded away, leaving only my mother's cries, which still echoed in my ears. My head was pushed into the water, and each time I was about to suffocate, I was pulled out. Before I could catch my breath, I was plunged back into the lake. The lake water poured into my eyes and nose. A stinging sensation. The lake water was freezing, but not as cold as the chill in my heart. I thought that by living again, as long as I didn't have contact with Qin Zi, I wouldn't repeat the same mistakes, but I never expected that he simply wouldn't let me go. My mind gradually dulled, and my body lost all sensation. Just as I felt I was about to die, I was suddenly dragged away from the lakeside and thrown at Qin Zedi's feet. Looking at me, slumped and disheveled on the ground, Qin Zedi's eyes flashed with a hint of pity. But as he thought of Yuna's appearance, his expression immediately turned cold and hard. Shenyenro, do you know your mistake? I used my last bit of strength to struggle to lift my head, saying with a voice full of hatred, I'm not wrong, I didn't do it, I won't admit it even if I die. After saying these words, I completely fainted. Before my eyes closed, I seemed to see Qin Zi reaching out to me in a panic. It must have been a hallucination. How could the person who almost drowned me feel sorry for me? Waking up again, I was back home. My parents told me that Qin Ziyi had been confined by the emperor for 3 months and could not go outside, urging me to stay calm and recover from my injuries. They are all princes. How come this third prince Qin Ziyi's character is so different from the second prince's? I heard from the maids that the second prince Qin Zhao has won the battle and returned to the capital. On the day of his return, the people of the whole city spontaneously ran to the city gate to welcome him. Miss, didn't you used to fight with the second prince? My personal maid said with a smile. I recalled my childhood, when I was teased by the second prince, Qin Zhao. Unable to bear it, I fought him tooth and nail. I beat him so badly he covered his head and scurried away, begging for mercy. But since he was sent to the border, we haven't seen each other for 3 years. I wonder if we'll have a chance to meet this time. Thinking of the fun of childhood, I couldn't help but smile. But suddenly I saw the birthmark on my wrist turning black. This is bad, it's an ominous sign. Go get someone. I quickly ordered the maid. Before long, the door was kicked open, and I saw Qin Ziyi with a flushed face. Before I could even think how he dared to defy the sacred decree and leave the house without permission, Qin Ziyi harshly grabbed my hair and dragged me off the bed. How can you still smile? It's all because of you that Yuna's cat died. Now she's weeping every day, heartbroken and unable to even eat. Come with me and kneel before Yuna to apologize. The guards flanked my parents on either side, while Qin Ziyi dragged me onto the street. I wanted to struggle, but I was too weak to summon even a speck of strength. My legs were rubbed raw, leaving 2 long trails of blood in the street. I was dragged all the way to the general's mansion, and to Sai Yuna. Yuna, I brought her here to apologize to you. Qin Ziyi threw me on the ground and gently embraced Sai Yuna. Sai Yuna's eyes flashed when she saw me, and she threw the teacup in her hand fiercely at me. A sharp pain shot through my forehead, and blood rushed out of the wound, turning my vision blood red. My pearls are all dead. What's the use of having her apologize? Your Highness, those were my favorite pearls. You must stand up for me. Sai Yuna burst into tears. Her voice choked with emotion, but at that moment, I was in so much pain that my whole body was trembling, and I couldn't hear what she was saying at all. Tears flowed uncontrollably down my face. Qin Ziyi paused, then patted her shoulder reassuringly. Yuna, you are the future imperial concubine. All of this is yours. Why are you arguing with her over a cat? Sai Yuna raised her head in astonishment, but Qin Ziyi had already walked up to me. Stop crying, it seems you know you were wrong. Since that's the case, I'll petition the emperor again to bring you into the prince's residence. But don't even dream about the position of secondary consort anymore. At most, you'll be a concubine. Serve me and Yuna honestly, and don't play any more tricks. Having said that, he lowered his voice again and leaned in close to my ear. The third prince's hand tightly gripped my neck, the familiar feeling of suffocation causing me to struggle. I'm doing this for the sake of the child who died. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be worthy to carry shoes for Yuna. He still has the nerve to mention that child. My eyes reddened as I stared at him, anger welling up within me, forcing me to cough up blood. In the last moment of darkness, I saw my parents rushing towards me, disregarding the guard's obstruction. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Qin Zhao sitting in front of my bed, his face as gloomy as water. I didn't expect that after 3 years, when we met again, he would see me in my most embarrassing state. Qin Zhao told me that he had arranged for 30 elite soldiers to guard outside the door day and night, so I didn't need to be afraid of the third prince breaking into the house again. Rest assured, how can I be at ease? I can't even save my own life, let alone protect my family. As long as Qin Ziyi and Sai Yuna remain, I cannot escape this tormenting hell completely. Looking at Qin Zhao applying the medicine for me, my heart stirred. And I suddenly grabbed his hand. Qin Zhao, can you marry me? Qin Zhao looked surprised, his ears turned red, and he almost dropped the medicine bottle in his hand. I widened my eyes, suddenly feeling a little overwhelmed. never expecting that he really had feelings for me. After a moment, I heard him ask, his voice trembling, "Eru, are you speaking from your heart?" Before I could answer, Qin Zhao interjected, "Whether you are sincere with me or just want to use me, I am willing. As long as you say the word, I can use my military merits to request an imperial decree, and have my father bestow a marriage immediately." The next day, the imperial decree for the marriage arrived. Father was very pleased with this, compared to the increasingly absurd third prince. The second prince is brave and reliable. If Ru'er marries him, it will be a great weight off my mind. Qin Zhao personally hunted a wild goose to propose marriage, and sent countless rare treasures to the Prime Minister's mansion. I couldn't help but secretly rejoice. In my previous life, the third prince resented me for taking the position of imperial concubine that rightfully belonged to Sai Yuna. The betrothal gifts he sent were extremely humiliating. Even the imperial bestowed phoenix coronet and wedding dress were given to Sai Yuna. I was only allowed to marry in a shabby, coarse robe, bringing shame to my parents as well. I didn't want to recall those past events. After recovering from my injuries, I specially cooked some pastries myself, planning to visit Qin Zhao, but on the way, the carriage suddenly stopped. Glancing at the birthmark on my wrist, which had turned slightly black, I pulled a dagger from my sleeve to defend myself. Lifting the carriage curtain, I saw Qin Zi and Sai Yuna blocking the way. Sai Yuna shouted at me harshly, "When you see His Royal Highness, why don't you get down and kowtow?" Hatred and loathing surged in my heart, making me feel nauseous enough to vomit, but I gritted my teeth and got off the carriage to bow to them. When Qin Zi saw the food box in my hand, joy was unmistakable on his face. Knowing I just recovered, "You came to ambush me with food. Looks like you've finally come to your senses. But your craftsmanship is no match for Eunice. Don't waste your time currying favor with me." Sai Yuna beside him spoke softly, "Thank you for your praise, Your Highness, but since sister has brought the food, we shouldn't waste it. Let's reward those dogs." Sai Yuna threw the food box away. The pastries scattered on the ground, attracting many stray dogs. Watching my carefully made pastries destroyed, I stared at Qin Zi and couldn't help shouting angrily, "That wasn't for you. If it's not for me, who else could it be for?" Shenyenro, don't quibble. Yuna is kind-hearted. Giving it to these dogs is also accumulating merit for you. I couldn't confront the third prince head-on. The birthmark on my wrist was turning from black to red. I told myself to endure a little longer. Turning around to get back on the carriage, I tried to leave, only to have Sai Yuna grab the reins. "Who allowed you to leave without permission? If you want to enter the mansion as a concubine, I need to teach you the rules first." Someone, slap her. Teach her a lesson. Qin Zi nodded in satisfaction beside her. "Lucky to have Yuna. With you managing the backyard for me, I can rest assured." The maid behind Sai Yuna took out silver needles. I struggled and screamed, but was still caught, just as the silver needle was about to pierce my fingertip. The maid was suddenly kicked hard and flew out. "Who gave you the courage to touch my imperial concubine?" Qin Zi's expression revealed faint displeasure. "Second brother, what nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean your imperial concubine?" "Third brother, you just recovered and haven't heard the news, have you? Father has bestowed a marriage between Yunru and me. We will be married soon." Qin Zhao stood in front of me, looking at him mockingly. "Third brother, if you keep making trouble like this, be careful I report to father that you're harassing your sister-in-law." "Impossible. She clearly likes me. How could she marry you?" Qin Zi looked completely disbelieving. He was about to speak again when he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. "Your Highness." Sai Yuna panicked and supported him. No one noticed the dark flash in her eyes. The onlookers were stunned, coming to their senses. They hurried to find the imperial physician. The third prince vomiting blood and fainting was a major incident. Everyone quickly sent Qin Zi back to the palace. When the emperor heard the news, He was furious and ordered all those present to be taken back to the palace as well. The Empress rushed over. Looking at the unconscious third prince lying on the bed, she shouted at Qin Zhao, "Qin Zhao, I should have known you were a wolf with a heart of ambition. How dare you harm my son?" Attempting to seize the throne from him, Qin Zhao's momentum did not weaken at all. "Empress Dowager, there's no need to frame me in such a hurry. Everyone present saw that third brother and I never made physical contact. Moreover, wasn't it his third imperial concubine Sai Yuna who was closest to him at that time?" Sai Yuna knelt by the third prince's bed, crying bitterly, as if she hadn't heard his words. The emperor, having a headache from the noise, waved his hand to silence everyone, waiting for the imperial physician's diagnosis. After a full day and night of examination, the imperial physician hesitated to give his conclusion. His Royal Highness was probably poisoned by a foreign voodoo. The wound on his chest has turned black, as if there are voodoo worms moving inside. It's clear that a catalyst activated the voodoo worms. Perhaps the assassination at the Mid-Autumn banquet was intended to use the catalyst to awaken the worms. The catalyst is colorless and odorless, and can only enter through the blood. Without contact with the voodoo worms, it would be completely ineffective. I suddenly realized. It seemed that in my previous life, because I had blocked the sword for Qin Zi, the voodoo worms were not activated. My blood had no catalyst, so it was useless to the worms. But how did he get poisoned by voodoo? I looked up and met Qin Zhao's eyes. He nodded at me. I felt relieved. But then my attention was drawn back by Qin Zi's painful roars. The emperor and empress hurried to ask what was wrong. The imperial physician wiped his sweat and quickly examined the third prince again. When the poison attacks, it's like being burned by 10,000 flames, and the heart feels as if it's being eaten by ants. This is probably a love voodoo. Only the heart blood of the person he truly loves can relieve it a little, otherwise he will be tortured to death. As if hearing the imperial physician's words, Qin Zi stretched out his hand in pain. "Yuna, save me." Tears streamed down Sai Yuna's face. Without hesitation, she picked up a dagger and stabbed it toward her heart. Seeing this scene, the emperor and empress, who had been dissatisfied with her because the third prince had done many absurd things for her, softened their attitudes. "Don't worry, once Ziya recovers, I will immediately let you two marry. I will never treat you badly." The empress stroked her hand, a satisfied look on her face. Sai Yuna's face blushed with shyness, but soon, everyone was stunned by the imperial physician's words. What? How could it be ineffective? Her expression was as if struck by lightning. She grabbed the imperial physician anxiously. The imperial physician hesitated. This. Perhaps Miss Sai is not the person His Royal Highness truly loves. I stared at the imperial physician in shock. Clearly, in my previous life, Qin Zi had loved her madly. He even made me bury with her when she died. How could she not be the one he loved? But the truth was undeniable. After drinking Sai Yuna's heartblood, Qin Zi's pain did not ease at all. Instead, it became more intense. Watching their son writhing in agony, the emperor and empress were extremely anxious. They suddenly remembered that Qin Zi had specially proposed to me before, and quickly ordered me to offer my heartblood. I was completely unwilling, even wished Qin Zi would die immediately. But facing the emperor's order, neither Qin Zhao nor I could refuse, and after drinking my heartblood, Qin Zi's distorted expression slowly calmed down. The emperor and empress were overjoyed. Sai Yuna's expression was so hateful she seemed ready to kill. I also found it incredible. Qin Zi's true love was actually me. After recovering, Qin Zi looked at me with an extremely complicated expression. At that moment, Sai Yuna suddenly knelt heavily before the emperor. "Your Majesty, it must be Shen Yenro who planted the voodoo worm in His Royal Highness, then plotted the assassination to bury the catalyst. Now she pretends to save him with her blood, attempting to control the third prince. Her motives are extremely malicious. Please, Your Majesty. Execute her immediately. The complexity in Qin Zedi's eyes instantly turned to disgust. Using a love voodoo to control me, Shen Yenro, you have such audacity. So your marriage to Qin Zhao is also part of the plan to force my voodoo to erupt, abandon Yuna, and marry me as the third imperial concubine. How disgusting. No matter what, I will never like you, give up on that. I sneered secretly, not wanting to engage with him at all. I took a step forward directly. Your Majesty. This subject accuses Sai Yuna of colluding with foreign forces and using voodoo to harm the third prince. Liar. Sai Yuna screamed and pounced at me, but I had sensed the danger in advance and dodged easily. At the same time, Qin Zhao walked to my side and pulled out a booklet from his bosom. Father, your son has uncovered evidence that the general's mansion is colluding with foreign powers, smuggling state secrets, and betraying the country. All the evidence is here, please review it. Father, it was I who had asked Qin Zhao to investigate the general's mansion. In my previous life, shortly after Sai Yuna's death, the Prime Minister's mansion was framed. Everyone was beheaded, only I escaped death by virtue of being the third imperial concubine. If my father had still been alive, Qin Zi would never have dared to humiliate me so arbitrarily. Before my father died, he had secretly handed me a letter. He suspected the general's mansion of colluding with foreign forces and supplying enemies with resources to betray the country. He also found out that Sai Yuna intended to control the third prince with voodoo, plotting to seize the imperial throne, but just as he was about to investigate further, his evidence was destroyed, and he himself was framed. Live well. Remember to beware of the people from the general's mansion. Wait until the third prince ascends the throne before making any plans. But unexpectedly, I was tortured to death before Qin Zi could become emperor. Thinking of my father in my previous life, my heart ached again. So in this life, I asked Qin Zhao to investigate the general's mansion. They could bring down the prime minister's mansion, but they could not defeat a prince holding military power. After reading the evidence Qin Zhao presented, the emperor flew into a rage and threw it at Sai Yuna's face. The evidence is irrefutable, how dare you quibble? Her eyes panicked. She looked to the third prince for help, urging anxiously, Your Highness, I didn't want to harm you. This is all their slander and frame-up. Qin Zi struggled to prop himself up from the bed, his face pale as he spoke. Father, Yuna would never do such a thing. Shen Yenro. How dare you falsely accuse the third imperial concubine? You deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Cough cough. The emperor quickly set aside everything else and looked at him with concern. Imperial physician, how can we completely eliminate the voodoo worm from the third prince's body? Sweat dripped from the imperial physician's forehead as he hastily replied, We only need to administer the heart blood of his true love every day. After 49 days, the voodoo worm will leave his body on its own, and the third prince will recover completely. I was ordered to stay in the third prince's mansion, drawing my heart blood every day to relieve Qin Zi of the love voodoo. Qin Zhao was dissatisfied and wanted to argue with the emperor, but I quickly pulled him back. Signaling that we could not defy the imperial order, he came to see me every day with tonics. But his face was gloomy, as if he wanted to hack the third prince to death with a sword, because the third prince begged the emperor to reinvestigate the general's mansion. The emperor, eager to protect his son, had to order his ministers to examine the evidence Qin Zhao had brought back. After Qin Zhao gestured with his eyes for me not to worry, he reluctantly left. I followed the maid to the third prince's bedroom again to draw blood and drive away the voodoo. As soon as I entered, I saw Sai Yuna feeding Qin Zi soup. It was he who had begged the emperor to let her stay. When she saw me, she concealed the malice in her eyes and stood aside obediently. Seeing this, Qin Zi glared at me sharply. Don't think I'll thank you for removing the voodoo. You're the one who planted it in the first place. Naturally, your blood should be used to cure it. Yuna is my true love, the future third imperial concubine. Don't you dare bully her." I curved my lips into a smile, calm and composed as I dripped the freshly drawn heartblood into a bowl. "Whatever you say, Your Highness." Qin Ziyi was stunned. He hadn't seen Shinyenro smile in a long time. He remembered her shy smile on their wedding day, her contented smile when sharing pastries with him, and her joyful smile when traveling with him. For a moment, he even thought he was starting to like that smile again. But after Yuna, wearing the phoenix coronet he had sent her, in a bright red wedding dress, and with child, had burned herself to death in the fire, all that liking had turned to hatred. And even now, it hadn't changed. Qin Ziyi came to his senses and fell silent, no longer speaking to me, until the last day. After I dripped the final drop of heart blood into the bowl as instructed by the imperial physician, Qin Ziyi suddenly spoke. "You still like me, don't you? Otherwise, why would you save me with 49 drops of heart blood without a single complaint?" I looked at him sarcastically. "Third Highness is far too conceited. If it weren't for the imperial order, I wouldn't bother saving you." Anger flared in Qin Ziyi's eyes. He was about to speak when the emperor and Qin Zhao walked in. I was about to make him drink the last bowl of medicine, but Sai Yuna, who had been obedient all this time, suddenly grabbed a dagger and rushed at me with a ferocious expression. The bowl of medicine in my hand was knocked over, but fortunately, Qin Zhao blocked Sai Yuna and threw her to the ground. "It seems you know the evidence of the general's mansion colluding with foreign powers and betraying the country is true. The traitors were all beheaded yesterday. Now you're the only one left." A hint of grief mixed with the ferocity in Sai Yuna's eyes. She shouted, "I'm carrying the third prince's child. This is the imperial bloodline. No one can touch me." I recovered from the shock. It seemed her plan was to kill me, leaving Qin Ziyi's love voodoo incurable. Then the imperial grandson in her belly would naturally become her lifeline. But unfortunately, Qin Ziyi's body trembled violently, stiff with shock. "Yuna, did you really plant the love voodoo on me?" Ignoring their conversation, I pricked my finger again, drew another drop of heart blood, mixed it into the medicine, and made Qin Ziyi drink it. After drinking the last bowl of medicine, the voodoo worm indeed crawled out of Qin Ziyi's heart and lay motionless. But when the imperial physician felt his pulse again, he turned pale with alarm. "How is this possible? Why is there still poison in His Royal Highness's body even though the voodoo worm is dead? What's going on? My son hasn't recovered yet." The emperor exuded a terrifying aura, making the imperial physician tremble all over. "Why, Your Majesty, the third prince's love voodoo has been cured. But there's a violent poison in his body damaging his foundation. Logically, all of His Royal Highness's food is tested for poison. This poison, I'm afraid it was carried by the voodoo worm itself." "Liar, voodoo worms are not poisonous at all." Sai Yuna wanted to tear the incompetent physician to pieces. The emperor's face instantly turned fierce. "Someone, drag her away." Guards entered to drag Sai Yuna away. Finally realizing her fear, she struggled